Every player of World of Warships has asked the following question at least once. Why do battleship shells sometimes deal either 1,000 damage or 10,000? And why do I receive so few credits after intense and hard battles? Understanding the game mechanics will help you make a greater contribution towards the victory of your team. One of the most important indicators of any player's efficiency is the amount of damage they inflict in battle. So let's begin with the damage-inflicting mechanics and the structures of ships in our game.
We'll take upgraded Japanese battleship Fuso with 57,100 HP as an example. A warship is a small floating city with a highly complex structure. So, how can one model such a complex structure in a game without turning it into an incredibly detailed and boring simulator?
First of all, instead of several dozens of compartments, we divide a ship just into the bow and rear ends, a citadel, superstructure, and casemate. We add different values to each part of the ship. Fuso's bow end has 3,700 HP, rear end 3,400 HP, casemate 8,500 HP, and superstructure 1,500 HP.
Naval engineers tried to group warships' vital compartments, such as the engine room or magazine, at the center of the hull and protect them with as much armor as they possibly could. This part of a ship is called a citadel. We certainly need to reflect its importance in the game. If a ship's citadel is destroyed, she will no longer be able to fight. That's why we decided to allocate all of the ship's HP there, 57,100 HP for Fuso.
Now it's time for the most important part. We're going to introduce a special virtual part called the hull. Fuso's hull has 42,800 HP. The sum of all Fuso's parts is 117,000 HP, but the HP indicator shows 57,100 HP only.
This means that you need to inflict 57,100 damage to the ship in order to destroy her. The part of the ship you hit and damage doesn't matter. It only affects how quickly you can destroy the ship.
The layout isn't simple and looks odd at first glance. Let's try to figure out how it works using a specific example. Let's assume that a shell dealing exactly 3,000 damage is fired at our Fuso. The shell will inflict this amount of damage to the citadel only. If the shell hits any other less important parts of the ship, it will deal just 1/6 of its damage. For example, if the shell hits the bow end, the Japanese battleship will lose just 1,000 HP of her total amount.
1/6 of 3,000 is 500 HP. Why does the ship then lose 1,000 HP of her total amount? The thing is that when a shell hits the bow end, it damages this part for 500 HP and deals another 500 damage to the hull. However, a most interesting thing will happen after 8 shells hit Fuso's bow end, which, as we remember, has only 3,700 HP. Because of this, it will be destroyed and cease receiving damage.
After that, every shell that hits the bow end will damage the hull only. So each penetration will cause not 1,000 but just 500 damage. By the way, here's a tip for the game. A destroyed part of a ship becomes black. So you don't need to waste your shells on these parts.
Nevertheless, we can destroy the hull by firing just at the destroyed bow end. As a result, the battleship will lose 46,500 HP. If you continue to fire at the bow end after that, your shells will deal just 10% of their damage to the HP bar directly. It's clear that Fuso's rear end, casemate, superstructure, and citadel are undamaged. Therefore, you can deal more damage to them, 1/6 of the shell's damage.
Now, let's assume that the shell hits the battleship's citadel. It won't deal any damage to the hull, but the citadel will receive 3,000 damage without any reductions applied. The issue of what part of a ship to fire at during battle depends on the specific battle conditions. But regardless of what part of Fuso you hit, you'll still need to deal exactly 57,100 damage to send the ship to the bottom.
Our discussion about how damage is inflicted in World of Warships has only just started. You'll learn everything about penetrations and module damage in our next episode.
If you found this video was helpful, make sure to share it with your friends. Leave comments, don't forget to hit the like button, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Until next time.